water get not recycled, thrown into our landfill sites and dumps and wetlands and streams and so on every single year, just in this province alone. And that is a huge garbage problem for us, and it's a huge waste. And of course, a great deal of our water is exported away. We're a net exporter as well. So when we had a press conference today at Queen's Park on a dump site that's been planned and given the go-ahead in a little town called Tiny Township up in Midland. And this is an area very rich in history, very rich in Aboriginal history, and the Aboriginal people have taken a great exception to the dump site being put there, because studies and tests have shown that this is among the cleanest water in the world. And to put in their dump site, they have to, so I quote, de-water. They have to take out a massive amount of this pure, beautiful water. Otherwise, when they dig the dump site, the water will come up from below and make it into one big polluted lake. So their answer is, instead of saying we've got to stop, building these sites in these pristine areas, it's, well, let's remove the water. And this is the beginning of a destruction of the water system in this area. We just have to stop. We have to stop. Also, water is destroyed in the making of the plastic, and water is destroyed in the pumping for the actual water that's needed. What the bottled water industry will say to you, well, we're not the only industry that wastes a lot of water. We'll say that's true. We're hanging out, harassing the other industries too. But you're the only industry that goes in on a case-by-case basis into an aquifer. You get a license, you take out a huge amount of water, I call it water mining, and when you're finished with the water, you move on. And this is a very important concept for us to get. There's nothing wrong with using groundwater if we use it sustainably and allow it to be recharged. But when you mine it and you drink it all up, then it goes dry. And that's what's happening in China, because they're using their water resources to make all the, running shoes and toys for the world and so on. They are creating an area of desert the size of Rhode Island every single year. And this is what happens, is when you dry up the aquifers, when you dry up the watersheds, you create desert, because guess what? A healthy hydrologic cycle needs to land on something green in order for it to work. And if you remove what's called water retentive vegetation, then it can't land, and the vapors blow away and you create desert. So as one scientist described it to me, he said, if you have an oasis and you water a desert, with time, it's not that you say, well, there's a desert there, but we've created an oasis here. You've now got two deserts. And this is what we have to get our heads around, that we're actually running out of fresh, clean water. And bottled water, we're a net exporter of bottled water. We have bottled water industries all around the Great Lakes, which are in trouble, and they are sucking that water up and exporting it away, even though we're not supposed to export water from the Great Lakes. In fact, 2 summers ago, the extraction from Lake Michigan with bottled water and other extractions actually reversed the flow of water in Lake Michigan. They put bore wells down into the streams that are feeding these lakes that go as deep into the ground as skyscrapers go into the sky. I mean, you have to try to understand the technology we're dealing with. And then they pump that water. And 2 summers ago, for the first time, instead of pumping spring water that actually feeds the lake, they reversed the flow, and they were pulling in Lake Michigan water. We wonder why the lakes are going down. Bottled water is not nearly as well tested or regulated as tap water. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency calls bottled water a low-risk food group, and they only go into the plants at most once a year, but often it's as much as 3 years between visits, and they only test for a few things, a bacteria and a few others, whereas the testing in our communities is thousands and thousands of times a year, and they're testing for over 160 substances. Bottled water, you must know, can be and often is contaminated. We know from many studies, one from a Canadian whose name is Dr. William Shottick, who comes from this place called Tiny Township, and that's why he started doing the studies on the water there, he tells us that, and he teaches at the University of Heidelberg, and he has a very sophisticated state-of-the-art lab there, and he's able to look at bottled water and PET, and he says if it sits too long in the bottle, or if that bottle sat in the sun or sat in the car and the sun came through the window, that water may not be safe. It may have endocrine disrupting phthalates in it. A 2005 British study found the carcinogen benzene in Perrier. It found bromate in Coca-Cola and naphthalene in Volvic. And a Big Fall study last year in Washington found 10 leading brands contain mixtures of 38 different pollutants, including bacteria, fertilizers, Tylenol, industrial chemicals, pharmaceuticals, arsenic, and radioactive isotopes. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need to worry about what's in our water. We do, and we need to protect our source water much, much better. But you are safer with the tap water, I'm telling you, than you are with the bottled water, because we don't know where it comes from. And studies show that sometimes it's taken from, well, if it's Coke or Pepsi, they just take it from the tap water, and you've already paid to have that cleaned. If it's Nestle's water, they may have taken it from an aquifer that may have been polluted. In China, 90% of the aquifers under the major cities are polluted, just to give you one horrific example. Bottled water is very expensive, anywhere from 200 to 3,000 times more than you would pay for it out of the tap. And now the big bottled water companies are targeting kids. There's Nestle has Aquapod, which is shaped like a rocket and goes off like a blast, and so they're marketing this to kids. And parents send Aquapod with the kids' lunch boxes. You ask any teacher, and they'll tell you they're made small to fit into these little kids' lunch buckets. Kids Only has teamed up with Bratz and Scooby-Doo and Superman. The kids trade these things. COT and Disney teamed up together, and they've got Finding Nemo and The Incredibles bottled water. And I don't know how you feel, but I feel it's bad enough that our kids are so surrounded by corporate logos and advertising in their day-to-day lives on television and everything. School should be one place where they can go and be free from this. Finally, and I kind of already said this, but I'll say it again, bottled water gives us the notion that it's okay to privatize water, and it is the first kind of step in this privatization of water. We're watching around the world a growing corporate cartel where every drop of water one day, like oil, may be owned before it comes out of the watershed. Like when they find a new find of oil or gas, it's owned now before it's taken out of the ground. Some corporation has claimed it and has license to drill for it. I vision in my moments when I'm feeling negative, but I have more moments when I'm feeling positive, but my nightmare is that there will come a day when every drop of water will be corporately owned. And let me tell you, I have debated people recently at a University of Chicago symposium with these supposedly bright young people who were not as bright as anybody in kindergarten I've met recently, I have to tell you. It all came out of business schools, the top MIT and all the top business schools, and these kids will all be making $1 million a year within a couple of months, I expect. And could you get through their head that there might be something called the public trust? Because these kids have been so taught that the market is the only thing. And I debated a whole panel of people who said the market is the only way to solve the water problem. So if you think people haven't got their eye on it, think again. When I wrote Blue Gold, the first book I wrote on water 7 years ago now, there were no public indexes, trading indexes on the stock exchange around water. Now there are dozens of them that trade nothing but water. I mean, it is a very, very hot property. So what do we do? Well, in a world with so many issues around us and so many things that we have to do, this is the first good step to say, I will take a pledge not to drink private commercial water. I will not drink it in my home. I won't drink it at my workplace. I'll talk to people about it. I'll talk to my kids. Kids will talk to their parents. Actually, Sid and I are hoping that the kids take it on and make bottled water uncool. And then we can go home and we don't have to worry about it anymore. We thank and congratulate the City of Toronto for its far